evening. Our top story tonight, NFL cutdowns are underway. The preseason is over, and so teams are making all sorts of moves, including the Houston Texans, who have officially announced CJ Stroud as the starter. We knew this was coming all along, but it is officially here. And now that CJ Stroud is starting, he's got a path to be the offensive rookie of the year. We've got that and much, much more on Player Profiler today. The preseason is in the books. It is all wrapped up. And the next game that we see will be the Detroit Lions versus the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. But before we get to all of that, there is a lot going on. We will see countless, over 1,000 players will end up being cut before all is said and done. We're going to see 1,184 players exactly to be cut. 500 will be brought back on the practice squad. And so all sorts of decisions are being made. And the Houston Texans have finally made their decision. It was always obvious you don't take CJ Stroud with the second overall pick and then sit him behind Davis Mills. You don't do that. It wouldn't have made any sense. We knew when CJ Stroud started the first, second, and third preseason games that it was his job. But it's official now. All the quarterback competitions are officially over. Bryce Young won. Anthony Richardson won. Sam Howell won. Baker Mayfield won. And now CJ Stroud is a winner. And he had his first touchdown pass in the NFL in his third preseason game. Throws a touchdown to Nico Collins. And Nico Collins, probably technically the wide receiver one for the Houston Texans. He's probably going to play the most snaps out of all of the Houston Texans, but I don't know if he'll see the most targets because I think Tank Dell is going to lead the Houston Texans in targets, maybe even beating Dalton Schultz in terms of targets. He's going to lead the wide receiver room for sure, but even Dalton Schultz might not be that great. Dalton Schultz was looking like a part-time player with CJ Stroud in the final preseason game. Now, that could change, but for now, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and I guess Robert Woods should be the starting three wide receivers for the Houston Texans. But at some point, I won't be upset if Robert Woods ends up heading to the bench in favor of John Mechie. And if at some point Nico Collins ends up replaced by Xavier Hutchinson, that would be all right as well. Regardless, Tank Dell has it. Tank Dell has everything that you want in a wide receiver, minus the height, but he has the electric playmaking ability with the ball in his hands. We saw that with the punt return last night before, whenever it was. And we've seen him get open at will, which is something CJ Stroud needs and something that he will have the time to find. Because a lot of these Texans receivers, Nico Collins, not an incredible separator, but CJ Stroud's going to throw it up to him. Robert Woods used to be a great separator. We don't know if he still has that, but Tank Dell gets open at will. And even if he struggles to get open right away, CJ Stroud will have the time to find him. He'll have the time to find Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz, because this offensive line for the Houston Texans is absolutely dominant. Two bookend tackles in Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. They just traded for Shaq Mason, who's been an all-pro guard in the past. They drafted Kenyon Green to be their left guard of the future. And in the second round, they also took Juice Scruggs, out of Penn State. The Texans invested in the offensive line. CJ Stroud, even if he has trouble hitting open receivers because no one's open, he's going to have the time to wait to sit into the pocket until someone finds their way open, which will happen when you have an elite separator like Tank Dell. And because of that, because CJ Stroud is going to have such great protection, and because the receivers, while not good, he'll be able to find them after a long enough time, CJ Stroud could very well end up being the offensive player of the year. I mean, look at the schedule. This was the last place team in the AFC South. This Houston Texans team, the second worst team in the NFL behind the Chicago Bears. And they don't really have much of a threat in their schedule. Of course, they play the Ravens, the Jags twice, the Bengals, and the Jets. Those are all losses. Ravens, Jags times 2, Bengals, Jets, 5 losses guaranteed. But you look at the rest of the schedule, and what are you that scared of? The Colts twice? That's not that scary. I'm not saying the Texans are good, but neither are the Colts. The Titans. The Houston Texans play the Titans twice, and the Titans aren't good either. The Steelers look like they're going to be one of the most improved teams in 2023, but that could just be a mirage of the preseason. How great are the Steelers really? The defense is degrading year over year. They've invested in the offensive line. It all comes down to Kenny Pickett. But even if Kenny Pickett takes that step, it's the Steelers. They're going to be happy to play a low-scoring game if possible, a game that the Texans could win at the last moment. What about the Falcons? Are you really telling me that this Desmond Ridder Falcons team is a lock to beat the Houston Texans? The Saints? The Saints and the Falcons, I'm taking them over the Houston Texans, but these are winnable games. The Texans can very well beat the Carolina Panthers. The Texans can absolutely beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Arizona Cardinals, 2 of the worst teams in football. The Texans should be better than the Bucs, should be better than the Cardinals. That shouldn't be a question at all. The Broncos were awful last year. We expect them to be improved, but that's a winnable game. And then the Cleveland Browns, that's also a winnable game. They won't win it if Deshaun Watson takes the step back to who we think he is, but that's not a lock. So the Texans have 5 locked-in losses on their schedule. But outside of that, there are a lot of winnable games for the Houston Texans. I think they lose a lot of them. But if CJ Stroud can be kept clean by this offensive line, has just enough time to pepper Tank Dell with targets, this is a winnable schedule. And if CJ Stroud stacks up those wins, if CJ Stroud takes the Texans from the second worst team in the NFL to even second in the AFC South, if they are better than the Titans or the Colts, CJ Stroud very well could be the offensive player of the year. Now, obviously, Bijan's going to be the favorite. Everyone wants Bryce Young to win it. People love Bryce Young, but CJ Stroud better than Bryce Young. Possibly a better team than Anthony Richardson has. And Bijan Robinson's a running back. So don't be surprised if and when CJ Stroud is the offensive rookie of the year. But before we get to more news around the NFL, we've got a word from the Podfather.
Hey, we've got to talk about Rival Fantasy today. Rival Fantasy, they're a huge supporter of everything we do, the podcast channel, the YouTube channel. It's possible because of Rival, and they have an incredible new offer. With promo code PLAYER, you double your deposit up to $200, and you get $25 in bonus bucks. So it's $225 additional to play in NFL preseason. You can do their props on the fantasy book where it's over, under, up to 5 guys. The more over-unders you hit, the higher your payout. And they have their challenges for the community. You can say, hey, I think that player X is going to go over this many fantasy points, and someone takes you up on it. They take the other side. It's great. I love their fantasy bingo, where you can do 5 across, you can do 4 in the corner, black it out, just predicting fantasy points on your favorite players, especially in preseason. The promo code is PLAYER, where they match your deposit up to $200 plus those $25 in bonus bucks. This offer is insane.
And we are back. And speaking of the Arizona Cardinals, who will probably lose to the Houston Texans, they have made some moves at quarterback. Colt McCoy has been cut by the Arizona Cardinals. He was the favorite to start the season. He's dealt with some injuries early in training camp at the end of last year. And let's be honest, Colt McCoy, he's a little bit dusty at this point. He is better off suited for the veteran backup that doesn't have to see the field over being an actual game day starter. But there's another layer to this. Another reason why the Cardinals probably didn't want Colt McCoy to be their starting quarterback is he's fine. He's not particularly good. He's going downhill. He's going to retire within the next couple of years, but it gives them more of an advantage playing Colt McCoy, who had all of the first team reps or most of the first team reps throughout the season, rather than playing 5th round rookie Clayton Tune, rather than playing Josh Dobbs, who they just traded for last week. So by moving on from Colt McCoy, who, again, wasn't going to win them many games anyways, But moving on from him and replacing him with two players that didn't see a majority of the first team reps with camp. Clayton Tune saw some of them. He mixed in a little bit with the first team, but Josh Dobbs just joined the team last week. And by starting either of them over Kyler Murray, who is going to be on the PUP, Kyler Murray will officially miss at least 4 games. Don't know if he misses too much more than that, given when he tore his ACL. Remember, he tore it just after Joe Burrow, who played week 1, and around the same time as Carson Wentz, who missed just 1 game. But Kyler, missing those first 4 games, it is more likely that the Cardinals will lose with Clayton Tune or Josh Dobbs at quarterback, having not spent the whole season as the starter, than Colt McCoy. So the Cardinals are officially tanking. They move on from Isaiah Simmons, get rid of him for a 7th-round pick to the New York Giants, and they get rid of Josh Jones, offensive tackle, who they traded to the Houston Texans, who really could be a starter on a lot of teams across the NFL. I'm surprised that the Texans got Josh Jones for so cheap, but now if anything happens to Titus Howard, if anything happens to Laramie Tunsil, they have Josh Jones, who is a quality NFL starter who can step right in. Other updates on rookie players: Clayton Tune could be starting, which is wild. Hendon Hooker will start the season on the non-football injury list. He will miss at least 4 games as well, and probably more. But the Lions do plan to activate Hendon Hooker at some point during this season. At some point, he is going to be getting some practice reps. And next year, he'll be the quarterback 2 behind Jared Goff instead of Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater didn't look particularly good during the preseason. Put it together towards the end, but Teddy Bridgewater is just a guy to step in if anything happens to Jared Goff. He can maybe go 2-2, maybe go 3-1 with this roster if the schedule permits it. Looking at other quarterback 2s around the NFL, Hendon Hooker, that will be his role. We also have Tyson Bagent. Now, it's not official that he's won the QB2 job. Nathan Peterman's still technically there, but let's be honest, Tyson Bagent is better than Nathan Peterman. And the Bears cut PJ Walker because Tyson Bagent is the QB2 of the future. He should have been drafted out of Shepherd, record setter, 0-star quarterback. Tyson Bagent. We love Tyson Bagent. Cody Carpentier was on it first, and we've been championing Tyson Bagent for months now. So happy that he has earned his way into the quarterback 2 job, as has Dorian Thompson-Robinson. We've talked about that, but Josh Dobbs was traded to the Arizona Cardinals. DTR is now QB2 behind Deshaun Watson, and if anything happens to Deshaun Watson, whether injury-wise, off-field-wise, doesn't matter, Dorian Thompson-Robinson is an intriguing dynasty asset at this point. There is a non-zero, pretty solid chance that DTR ends up starting games for the Cleveland Browns over the next 2 seasons. And with the Konami code that he is a must roster in Dynasty Superflex leagues. Other rookie news across the NFL: Sean Tucker. We heard all the reports that, Sean Tucker, he's practicing with the first team. He's taking carries away from Rachaad White. And then we get to the actual preseason game, the final game. And Rachaad White's the 1, Keyshawn Vaughn is the 2, and Sean Tucker is the 3. And now that is very impressive. Don't get me wrong. Sean Tucker going from undrafted free agent to RB3 in just 1 offseason. Not even a full offseason, because he missed a significant amount of time in OTAs and minicamp. That's a big deal. But Sean Tucker is not a threat to Rachaad White. He never was. People wanted to pretend that he was because they hate Rachaad White because, he was inefficient behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. But didn't look better than Leonard Fournette, except he actually did. And he commanded 50 targets as a rookie. Rachaad White's the real deal. He's going to be a bell cow for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Sean Tucker is not the backup. It's Keyshawn Vaughn. Sean Tucker, RB3. Anyone telling you otherwise is just holding on to their priors after reading one training camp report that Sean Tucker one day got reps with the first team, but he's not the backup. Anyways, moving on to the rest of the preseason. We had some things that we were able to learn from the preseason. Number 1, Bryce Young loves Adam Thielen, even if Adam Thielen is absolute dust. And also, this is pretty skewed because DJ Chark, he had a 19% target share from Bryce Young, but he also missed the final preseason game for the Carolina Panthers. So how much can we read into that? How long can Adam Thielen command a 33% target share? I'm going to tell you right now, he's not going to do it for one game this season. He's not going to have a 30% target share in week 1. And obviously after that, it's going to be lower than that. But for now, Adam Thielen is the wide receiver 1 until DJ Chark returns. Jonathan Mingo sees a nice 19% target share. Hayden Hurst, really disappointed with Bryce Young. After that first game, we saw, Hayden Hurst, he looks like the wide receiver 1 for Bryce Young. And then as the preseason went on, Hayden Hurst wasn't getting those targets that we were hoping for. But it's preseason. Things can change. Alec Pierce, Isaiah McKenzie, and Kylan Granson might not all have a 14% target share from Anthony Richardson, but it is pretty promising that Michael Pittman drew 28% of the targets from Anthony Richardson when he was starting. Anthony Richardson locked into his guy, and that is what Michael Pittman needs. This is going to be a low-volume passing game, and so to succeed in a fantasy football, in a low-volume passing game, you either have to have crazy touchdown numbers or a crazy target share. And Michael Pittman so far, 29% target share. That is elite. And with that, Michael Pittman would be drafted properly. But if Michael Pittman slips below that, if Alec Pierce, Isaiah McKenzie, Kylan Granson end up seeing more than a 15% target share, if they start encroaching on that, then it's going to be bad news for Michael Pittman. But for now, from what we've seen in the preseason, Anthony Richardson has his guy, and Michael Pittman is going to be an alpha. And we also saw some other quarterbacks. Jordan Love had a guy that he locked into. So did Sam Howell. So did Kenny Pickett, though Kenny Pickett spread it around a little bit more. Sam Howell locked in on Jahan Dotson. Now, granted, Terry McLaurin ended up being hurt earlier in the preseason, but he and Diami Brown, who play the same position, both saw an 11.4% target share. So let's give that position a 22% target share. Terry McLaurin very well could command 22% of the targets, but Jahan Dotson still took 25% of the targets. Jahan Dotson looked like a true blue bona fide alpha for the Washington Commanders with Sam Howell. It could change when Terry McLaurin returns, but for now, Jahan Dotson looks like he might end up being one of the biggest steals of early drafts. Now he's going ahead of Terry McLaurin, but before the injury, he was not. Maybe he should have been all along. Also, good news for Antonio Gibson, a 14% target share. The same as Brian Robinson, but we all know Antonio Gibson, a much better receiver than Brian Robinson. Excited to see him and Sam Howell hook up with the Jerick McKinnon role that we saw from the Kansas City Chiefs last year. Antonio Gibson going to be commanding some targets. And so is Luke Musgrave. Luke Musgrave drew 24% of Jordan Love's targets with the starters, crushed Christian Watson, crushed Jaden Reed, and Romeo Dobbs. We heard all the hype about Romeo Dobbs all offseason long. Oh, Romeo Dobbs, he's a star in the making. He's going to break out. And then, he gets the touchdown in week 1, but Romeo Dobbs, a 12% target share. He is behind Jaden Reed, behind Christian Watson. They both have an 18% target share. And most importantly, Luke Musgrave, 24.2% of the targets. He is up 40 spots in ADP since August 9th, the most out of any player. Luke Musgrave, I've been saying it for months now, is the tight end 1 in this class. He is going to be tight end 1 at least in 2023. After that, when Dalton Kincaid starts to see the field a little bit more, Michael Mayer, sure, it can be a conversation, but for now, Luke Musgrave is the rookie tight end that you want. And right now, he is the leading target getter in this offense. We also saw Kenny Pickett lock in to Deontay Johnson, a 27% target share for Deontay and a 20% target share for both George Pickens and Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson probably not going to see that much of a target share come the regular season, but Deontay Johnson, we've said it all along, he is an elite target commander, even if the peripherals, even if the efficiency sometimes is a little bit icky, even if he's not scoring touchdowns, Deontay Johnson is elite at commanding targets, and he is still the alpha in this offense. No matter how many crazy catches George Pickens gets, he's still the 1B because Deontay Johnson is commanding all of those targets. And speaking of 1Bs, it appears that Christian Kirk might be the 1B to Calvin Ridley's 1A. This has been a talk all offseason long. Player Profiler has debated it. There are people that support Christian Kirk. There are people that support Calvin Ridley. But Over the preseason, Calvin Ridley commanded a 31.3% target share from Trevor Lawrence. Christian Kirk commanded a 25% target share, and both of those numbers are elite. Those are elite numbers. So if that holds true, both Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk are going to eat. The problem is I don't think that stays true because Evan Engram didn't play every game. Evan Engram only had a 6% target share because he didn't play that much, which is why Luke Farrell had a 12% target share and Zay Jones had an 18.8% target share. Come the regular season, I think we're going to see those numbers drop. I think it's going to be closer to a 20 to 25% for Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. Zay Jones and Evan Engram are going to see closer to 17 to 20%. Jaguars offense isn't going to be as consolidated as we saw in the preseason, but this is going to give some hope for all the Calvin Ridley truthers out there. This is a good time to trade him for better assets because Christian Kirk's been going so much later all offseason. And granted, in the preseason, we saw Calvin Ridley was the favorite of Trevor Lawrence. I still think it's going to be a little bit more of a spread the love type offense like the Kansas City Chiefs typically have run, or at least they did run this past season. Now, unfortunately, as we talked about earlier, over 1,100 players are going to be cut over the next couple of days. 500 of those players will be brought back to practice squads, but that's still over 600 players without a job, and that is devastating. These are real people. We wish them all of the best. We do not wish for any players to lose their job, even if we make jokes about Clyde Edwards-Helaire being a CFL running back. We still want him to be employed. We don't want players to lose their jobs. This is the unfortunate reality of the NFL. And a lot of moves have already been taken place. We saw James Robinson was cut by the New York Giants. Kenyon Drake cut by the Indianapolis Colts. It looks like Robinson and Kenyon Drake might be on their last legs. James Robinson, this is the second team that has cut him already. In 2023, he was cut by the Patriots. Actually, I think it was the third time because the Jets technically cut him too. And then the Patriots cut him. And now the Giants. Unfortunate for James Robinson. We hope that he can regain his early career prowess, but for now, it looks like the NFL is moving on from James Robinson. Kenyon Drake cut by the Indianapolis Colts. They are going to keep an eye on Kareem Hunt if they do end up trading Jonathan Taylor. Sounds as though multiple teams could be in on Jonathan Taylor. We'll get to that in just a bit. Trace McSorley was cut by the New England Patriots, which means Malik Cunningham, the quarterback / wide receiver, undrafted free agent out of the University of Louisville. Looks like he very well could end up making the roster as a QB3 / wide receiver hybrid, play the Taysom Hill role. Because for now, it's just Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. We'll see if Malik Cunningham ends up making the roster. Speaking of the New York Jets, moving on from James Robinson, Bam Knight was also cut by the New York Jets, which means Michael Carter has made the team. It's going to be Dalvin Cook. It's going to be Breece Hall. It's going to be Michael Carter and Israel Abanikanda as the RB4. Probably going to be inactive on most game days, but those are the backs that the Jets will be carrying. The Patriots have made a move. They cut James Robinson earlier this offseason. They were looking for a running back, which caused them to sign Ezekiel Elliott. And after signing Ezekiel Elliott, they have moved on from Pierre Strong, which breaks my heart because I thought Pierre Strong was going to be a real thing for the Patriots this year, but it could end up being pretty exciting for Pierre Strong. Jerome Ford has not practiced very much throughout the month of August. He's been dealing with a quad injury, missed plenty of time. And so with that injury, depending on when he comes back, Pierre Strong could end up working his way into the good graces of Kevin Stefanski and the rest of this offense. Pierre Strong very well could end up being the running back number 2 for the Cleveland Browns. But most importantly, this probably tells us that Nick Chubb is in for an absolute monster workload. Jerome Ford hasn't practiced, so they can't really trust him a whole lot. And Pierre Strong doesn't know the offense, so it's going to take time before they trust him. Pierre Strong, in this trade, the New England Patriots land Tyrone Wheatley Jr., and they also trade for Vidarian Lowe, a 6th-round pick from the Minnesota Vikings last year. They gave up a 2024 6th-rounder for a player that the Vikings were probably going to cut. And this is just what you got to do when you're the Patriots and you have a terrible offensive line. You have no answer at right tackle. And I shouldn't say it's a terrible offensive line. The interior is pretty solid. Cole Strange was actually really good, despite everyone laughing at his draft pick last year. David Andrews is a very quality center, has been for years. At right guard, Mike Onwenu, he has been dominant. Big Mike played right tackle for a period of time for the Patriots. Maybe they could kick him out there again if they have to, but the tackles are a problem. Trent Brown has been an up and down career, and he's playing left tackle, and at right tackle, I don't actually know what the decision was. Riley Reef played there a bit, but now it looks like he might be a guard. Calvin Anderson's played there a bit. Connor McDermott. It is a nightmare for the New England Patriots, which is why they've traded for 2 offensive linemen over the past couple of days, and even that is not enough. Going to be a long season for Mac Jones if they can't figure out this right tackle position. But does free Pierre Strong to go to the Cleveland Browns and hopefully be the handcuff to Nick Chubb. Hopefully he ends up taking that RB2 role from Jerome Ford, who I also love, but I just love Jerome Ford. I just love Pierre Strong a little bit more. And of course, the Patriots had to get rid of the only player on their offense that runs sub 4-5. This is a slow offense for the New England Patriots. Other moves, the Los Angeles Rams have traded for Kevin Dotson, former left guard of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He ended up being benched when they signed Isaac Seumalo from the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason. Now Kevin Dotson gets a fresh start with the Rams. Rams add talent to the offensive line, something that they just don't have right now. Arguably the worst offensive line in all of football with the Los Angeles Rams. And so it ends up being a pick swap. The Steelers get the 4th round from the Rams in 2024 in exchange for the 5th round pick of the Steelers in 2025. And then in the Rams. Yeah, no, I said that right. The Steelers and Rams swap 4th, 5th round picks in 2024 and 5th, 6th round picks in 2025. Good trade for a player that the Steelers might have ended up cutting after some significant additions to the offensive line throughout the offseason. And the Rams just need everybody that they can possibly get. We also have the Miami Dolphins, who signed Zach Seiler to a 3-year, $30.8 million deal. This is allegedly independent of the deal that Christian Wilkins, their all-pro defensive tackle, is seeking. But there are also some rumors that, Christian Wilkins didn't take the deal, so they turned their attention to Zach Seiler. I think these are 2 independent moves, but does open the door to some questions for the Miami Dolphins. Will Christian Wilkins end up getting a deal done this year? And will Jonathan Taylor end up with the Miami Dolphins as well? We know that the Dolphins have made an offer. We know that their first offer to the Indianapolis Colts was rejected. And now they've made a counter offer. They made a second offer. It doesn't include a 1st round pick, but the Dolphins are in on Jonathan Taylor, as is another team. We don't know who this other team is. We know it's not the Chicago Bears. The Bears have bowed out of this competition, but the Dolphins have some competition for Jonathan Taylor. There was a tweet earlier today from a Twitter doctor about how the Dolphins don't run the ball enough, and that if they're trading for Jonathan Taylor, he's only going to get 50% of the attempts, which means Jonathan Taylor's only getting 11 carries per game, which was absurd. Doesn't make any sense. And then they got super sensitive and started blocking people who called them out and saying, why would the Dolphins trade for Jonathan Taylor and then give him 11 carries per game? Your logic is flawed. That's why you tune in to Player Profiler today, though, because if the Dolphins do trade for Jonathan Taylor, he will be a bell cow for them. That probably wasn't going to be the case from Dalvin Cook. He's probably actually going to see 50% of the opportunity for the running backs. But if the Dolphins at the deadline trade for Jonathan Taylor, they are going to make him their bell cow. Devon A-Chain, see you later. You're relegated. You're going to be healthy and active on a lot of games. Jeff Wilson, you're going to be a relief back. You and Raheem Mostert really aren't going to play much because we're going to give all of the work to Jonathan Taylor. He will get 75%, 70% of the opportunity because that's how good Jonathan Taylor is if the trade goes through. But it might not go through. Some other team might trade for Jonathan Taylor, or the Colts could just end up holding on to Jonathan Taylor for the 2023 season. Either way, I truly believe that Jonathan Taylor plays the entire 2023 season, barring injury. But if the Colts don't trade him, he's got to go and put film out there to reach free agency next year and reach that mega deal that he was hoping for. And if the Colts do trade him, then he's happy because he's on a new team and a new situation. And he wants to go out and perform for them. So either way, Jonathan Taylor is going to play. Either way, Jonathan Taylor is going to be a stud. It's just, who does he play for? That is the last remaining question. And our final remaining question of the show, Chris Jones, the defensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. He has incurred $1.8 million in fines for his training camp holdout. Now, I don't believe if you hold out in the regular season, you actually face any fines. Obviously, they don't give you your game checks. So he is forfeiting a substantial amount of money in every game that he misses. But Chris Jones says he can afford it, says he's not going to show up until week 8. And so that means that come 2 weeks from now, when things are kicking off across the NFL, less than 2 weeks from now, when the NFL kickoff happens, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Detroit Lions, Chris Jones will not be there, barring a contract extension from the Chiefs, which isn't coming. Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Detroit Lions with the star centerpiece of their defense in a surging Lions offense. The Chiefs are going to lose week 1 to the Detroit Lions.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.